what you're doing is you're not giving the beings that are in a step below that the opportunity to keep rising. But it does also say that, behold, I saw the ladder going up and down. That is a very, very cryptic message, and it is very real that there is things ascending and descending. And this is why, unless you have a true eye, you cannot judge. You have not reached the state of being a real judge, because you will judge wrong. You don't know at times, like even when you see the worst person, if they were even worse before, or when you see a really good person, if they were like even better before and they're actually going down, they're getting less and less good. You don't know that unless you have a real eye, unless to be a real judge. And so it's like all of these positions, if you notice, even when you say you want to lead people, like when you want to be a star, it is a huge mantle, because there's a certain level of responsibility that comes with when somebody sends energy to you, to make sure that you are configured in a way that sends the energy back to them. And then it's like because that's also how we're supposed to do, right? We build off each other, we encourage each other, but that has to happen in so many different dynamics. And when you have like thousands of people, millions of people focusing all on one person and filling that person with light, you got to know that that person can't hold all that light. So they got something else around them that is like a battery, like a storage container that will then hold that light for them. So this is how also the mismanagement of the financial system is conducted. So because a person then gives up all of, like you got millions of people giving up all their light to one person, and then you got all that light concentrated in that one being, and then you got that being trapped in an inverted pyramid generally, right? Yes. So then all the power, and this happens in money, right? Because there's a denominator, right? So now all that person's got $300 million of everybody's money. So like PewDiePie's or one of these guys, the Mr. Beast, he's got $1 billion in 6 months. That was like $2, $3 at a time, but with millions of viewers and even kids in India, everybody just giving their last, boom, this guy becomes a billionaire. Now, the thing is that, like I know, if I gave you $1 million, the streets would feel that. Meaning that you could literally go open up a little school for the kids. They'd be like, man, Brother Rich did it all. I mean, if I gave you $1 million and said, look, do something that's going to impact things, that's quite a bit to go into to do something to impact, especially as resourceful as you have become, right? So it's just that awareness that, this thing from the mystical side, and that's why I said the dream is very important, because it's like the hint. It's like the clue. It's letting you know, hey, something is really like, if you can think about the feeling of magic and mystical stuff, the easiest touch point to that and your awareness of that is a real thing is the dream. Because it's a sheer phenomena that, sometimes just gets completely overlooked about how we close our eyes and then be somewhere else. Indeed. So it's like we could be trying to find something we're trying to still like activate something that we already have a certain activation on, and we just need to work further in that direction and actually stay focused on that.
Indeed. I want to ask you, Sevan, about one of the big topics with this quote unquote new age information is doing shadow work. Everybody's talking about, you got to do shadow work. You got to do shadow work. What I want to ask you, since we're talking about time travel and timelines, and, we have, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, we have past lives and past timelines that we have experienced. Is your shadow self, is that Sevan? Is that aspect of, like say I'm Brother Rich. I ask great questions, but my shadow self is, I'm just trying to think of something.
Yeah, he's a bad guy.
I do some crazy shit in the back. I go outside at night and I rob corner stores or something like that.
Yeah. Well, listen to this. I know exactly what you're saying. So, what this
hold up,
is
Sevan.
called
Hold on. Let me just finish this point, Sevan.
Okay.
Well, maybe you do know, but I gotta say, I gotta let it out.
Yes,
you gotta
yes,
let me.
sure,
I gotta
sure.
let it out.
Excuse me.
Is that an aspect of my former life that I haven't quite shaken off me yet? Like I got a new chance. I got a new avatar. I'm popping in this world, but I still got remnants of that former self. And that former self in the current life, I call that former self the shadow self. So the shadow self is really the former self that I haven't shaken off yet, and it's a remnant that I have to learn to shake off, but it's still stuck with me in this lifetime, my brother.
Yeah, okay, so let's just break it down for what it truly is. So this is like the term of shed, right? Or shade, right? So all these are the words: shed, shade, shadim, shaddai, and this is all related to the shadow realm. And technically, if we can think of the past in itself as a shadow or a husk, then we can say that nothing ever goes anywhere. It just changes state.
Yes.
So when somebody's saying let's do shadow work, they're saying that, they need to basically, in a nutshell, bring a beam of light or a pipeline to things that may be forgotten. Because technically, the past is just roots. It consists of the roots of how we're standing, right? But there's a deeper level that I wanted to refer to in this also, and it's wow, like I was right on top of it here. Just give me a quick moment, but because what I'm getting at here is that, so when you're dealing with this other self, and if you're thinking that there it is. So if you're thinking that there's this other pole to you, you're kind of like misunderstanding the organism in itself and how it's designed. How it's designed is this is why they have like a black snake and a white snake on the Kadesha staff. And I can tell you, you're not the snake. But what could happen is you could become the black snake, or you could become the white snake, just in the process of, because as I said, the snake moves through the body. So just in the process of the good angel and the bad angel decision-making thing that goes on inside of the mind, you basically polarize, as we were talking about earlier, to one of those energies. And if you spin, which this would predominantly happen for most people who have not found balance, and many people have not found balance. So you would basically be living in one of your serpents, one of your poles. You would be living in one of your poles. And then what would happen from there is you would have this antithesis, right? Because it's like, now you're something that you're not. You're like instead of being the rod in the center of the Caduceus, instead of being the Sunshumna in the center, instead of being comes to actually be a sovereign, is that you actually have to learn how to come into your life and basically be the Lord and the master of your life, and stop subscribing to entities or idols. Now, this is interesting because there's a lot of idolization. But the reason why idolization to a god is forbidden is because it basically makes you send all your energy to something else. And if you're not familiar with what that is, we are supposed to be familiar with our ancestors, right? So when the connection with our ancestors is severed, we don't have to go to anything external to connect that, to reconnect that. We don't have to go to some statue that's supposed to be it, some name even that's supposed to be it. We only just, because it's not felt that way, is what I'm saying. It can't be felt externally. This is also what happens when somebody dies, and why a lot of people can't communicate with somebody that died. It's because you never really knew them. You never sat there for hours and stared in their eyes.
Powerful.
We don't have intimate relationships like this anymore because we don't care. And the reason why we don't care is because we've been taught not to care. And we've been shown things that we don't think are a big deal anymore. And now we get an opportunity to, again, come back into our own body and actually say, okay, look, I realize that I'm about to carry this debt right on to the next life, but it's going to be on my children, whoever gets my DNA, basically. And some folks will be like, well, shoot, I don't have kids. So it comes through that's why it's called hereditary. It's your inheritance. You see that word hereditary and then the word inheritance? These are virtually the same word. So notice how somebody can hereditarily become asthmatic, right? So somebody passed asthma to you. So until somebody fixes asthma keeps getting passed. You see what I mean? So that's the power of who we are, because then we have this opportunity to come in and actually intercede on our lives now.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Sevan. And first of all, I want to give a shout out to everybody in the chat. We got about 2,500 people in the chat. Shout out to everybody in the chat. It's been a great show so far. Shout out to everybody. Make sure you hit that like button. That is extremely, extremely important. I want to ask you this, Sevan. You know, we're talking about, like I said, we're talking about so many things. Time travel could go in so many different directions, whether it's dimensions or whether it's, you know, parallel universes or whatever. But a meme that they got on the internet, a good sister by the name of Lisa shared this on Instagram. It said that time is not linear. It said that it's simultaneous. It's everything, including the past and the future. It's all happening right now, Sevan. They say past lives are actually parallel lives. Time is a man-made 3D construct, Sevan. And Sevan, in fact, in higher dimensions, there's no such thing as time, Sevan. We experience everything happening simultaneously in the now as one. So when I seen that in that meme, Sevan, and I heard this before, first thing I thought of, I said, "Oh shit, is that what a crazy person is? Schizophrenic? They see they say the now contains a schizophrenic nigga. Be like, I see this, I see that. You was a good. You're gonna have this in the future. In the past, they just be all over the place. Is it that what we call crazy or what we call schizophrenic or psychotic, Sevan, is somebody, your body, your brain, your body, the body computer is not meant to contain all this data. So it's like overload for them. So when they overload, they get schizophrenic and they start talking about, they're not crazy, but they just got access to more information than me and you may have, Sevan. Is that what that is when I see somebody who's schizophrenic? When I read that definition there, Sevan?
You know, it's so it is pretty difficult to explain the reality and how it's interweaved and how one thing becomes another, because when you're looking at this reality, it's because it looks like this because of the amount of perception you have. And that's why when you open the third eye, you see things in the reality and they're still there, but they look different. And you also see other stuff. You also see other energies. The easiest way for us to visualize what would be going on inside of a person's consciousness when they start to become schizophrenic is to look at first that when you're saying time travel, what you're actually saying, and if you lay out the body, because that's why it's like easy to know all this because you're sitting in the map already, right? So when you lay out the body, when you lay it out, and as I told you, you got the organs laid out there, right? So the organs are there, the heart's over here, the kidneys over there. Imagine those are lands, okay, territories, right? Now, the nature of this thing is that you get your own copy in the condition in which you keep it in, why it sits in a copy in the condition in which everybody's keeping it in. That sits in the copy. So this is the nature of it. And you can oscillate through different copies. However, how would you be moving through that? That's how you can make it really easy, because this stuff, if it's real, it's got to be factual in many ways. It's not hocus pocus poof, I just believe in it. There's a way to say what it is. The nadis, because that's what it is to be a human being in this creation, because you get a chance to be in one. So when you're trying to figure out what's going on, you look no further than yourself. So your whole system has what is tube work. So when you think of the ley lines, as I mentioned earlier, the ley lines are also tubes that go into different spaces in time inside of the orgasmic organism, or what you're calling the body, but what we would say is then the galactic body.
Yes.
So when a person is crazy, what has happened is in their land, when you go into different parts of your consciousness, because it doesn't mean the person is still in their mind. They may actually be in another part of their body, because it's known you can operate without being in having a brain that is even functional. They got people that live every day with no brain. Check it out. Go Google it. Check it out. So the reality is that now it's like you get your own. So the things that you still need to rectify, you will keep experiencing inside of yours, and the bigger one will do its best to try to protect you, as the bigger one around that will do its best to try to protect it. You see what I mean? So this is also the nature of the system. This is why when this design was in play, there was no other designs, because this one was like, Every single scenario, everything that you could think of, it already had that basically under control, ready to, ready to. And then also when you talk about rules are not something somebody writes down on tablets and comes down from a mountain with. Rules are what work their way out in nature. So we have to see that nature worked out the rules through the process, not through that somebody created rules. There is no rules.
It was just a process, through the process.
Yes, because if there was rules, then it's like that's saying, well, look, only 2 doves, which y'all 2 doves are the only ones will be together. Y'all other 4 doves, no 4 doves in the same nest as those others. You see what I mean? It's just like these are the rules. And so we'd be micromanaging the organism, which is not what's happening. So the process of the organism is worked out through the process of its existence. And we've been in existence for a bit, a countless period. But that existence is not lost. So when you say time travel, you will be going to what is not lost. Like people think because they can't remember anything, that everything that they did is not still there. But that's what I was saying before, where I was playing with some Motivite. I got these Motivite on my chakras, real Motivite. I went to sleep. I had to use the restroom. I get up. I go to, I get up to use the restroom. I open the door. The restroom was in the thing. I get up, walk in the restroom, and then the door to the room is open into the kitchen. And I think I see somebody move. I go look in like this, and I see everybody who has ever been in this apartment walking and doing things, right? It terrified me.
Wow.
I didn't know what the hell was going on. Wow. And I looked back at my body, I saw my body, and I snapped back in the body.
Wow. This is good stuff here. This is good stuff here. All right.
Listen, and then I get up and I'm like, okay, so I know what happened because there's awareness. You just saw that everything that's ever happened is written on the field. Yeah. So then what am I doing? I'm trying to figure out the configuration. I tried to figure out the configuration for at least 2 years of how to get back into that space before somebody ultimately stole those Motivites. But taking those little morsels of real experiences, like, again, so some people, they talk about monatomics. We make monatomics, the real ones, super deformed nuclear hybrids. It's possible. Mini colliders, ohm rates, the whole 9. And then, drink and see what happens, the drink me bottle. But what I'm saying is that my existence, this life, has been to actually live this experience. But I realize that I can't live it from my mind. I have to get into it. I can't think about all day what I should do. And also, if I have a lot of limitations, then I'm creating a lot of friction for myself. And I'm not just saying you go and do, crazy and wild stuff. Hopefully you're wise and have good judgment. But what I'm saying is when you set up barriers and blocks that are just based on I'm gonna just keep it clear. Right now, folks are really, really getting distracted with these narratives. The racial narrative is insane. Because no matter what way you look at it, it still means that you're personally responsible for everything that's happening. As I said before, as a people, we try to take claim to being the original. So that means that everything that came after us is our children. But we got some badass kids. And the thing about it is that you also see that there's a consistent energy of when a kid is very bad, it gets abandoned. It doesn't become a better kid. It keeps going in that direction. And as you said, like the abuse and things it becomes a part of the abuse. So you can imagine also that Earth in itself has a lot of that energy, what I call it resident evil. Okay. And what I mean by this is that it only takes you, if you know what ritual really is, it only takes you to allow your mind to slip into a certain level of distortion for you to immediately then pick up on the whole data set of distortion. And this is what would be things in a person's mind that are telling them counterproductive things to their growth and to their energetic field. So, like, for instance, watch this. Not to put you on the spot, but alkaline and acid, right? They talk about how alkaline and acid is the biggest component to healing your body, right? To go alkaline, right? And this alkaline and acid thing is governed by pH, right? your pH. What does pH stand for?
Don't know. Is it per hydrogen? No, right?
That's good. That's good right there.
Yeah.
It's potential hydrogen.
Potential hydrogen. I knew it was something hydrogen. Yeah.
Now most of the cats, it would have been over right there.
Yeah.
Because it's like you can learn how to talk about something, but if you don't ever get your alkalines and get your acids, you won't never learn that there is bad alkaline.
Wow.
You can be over alkaline.
Right.
There's good acid. Right.
Yeah.
Now watch how, again, like with this pH or this potential of hydrogen, when you start thinking about the organism in itself, what you're talking about is alkalines and acids, and the only thing that you really get every day in life that you use is actually batteries, because batteries do have alkaline and acid in them. That's why they call it an alkaline battery, or it's an acid or dry acid battery. So when we discovered that your pH balance shifts when you get angry, the moment you get angry, your liquids in your body, which are magnetic, change into, and let's say in this case, for lack of terms, acidic negative, right? But just just right away. So your whole field change. It's like fish. You see these fish that move there and they move there. So your whole field does that. The moment that you get upset or angry or somebody throw you off or you see something you don't like, so the whole field does that, right? So what happens with the body, though, is that because all of the organs in themselves are supposed to be in singularities, they have a positive and a negative field, and they're supposed to actually, do the torus. Instead, they polarize and then they fuse out. They basically start zapping and then they get deadened. Then when one organ goes out, your body is only as strong as your weakest organ, right? So the planet is only as strong as the weakest God. And, it's just kind of like that awareness that we have to make sure that we understand truly by the name of that word where all this stuff is actually taking place at, of this thing about gods, this thing about energy, this thing about stars, this thing about netherworlds, Baal, Moloch, all of them. Now, true enough, because as above, so below, you will get a drama that will play out here on earth that will resonate that pattern, that story, that starry. But the truth of the matter is that it would be like gossip if you were viewing it from the earth perspective, because it would have went through so many people before it got to you, the true story. You would have to ask yourself, is that really even a story? So that's what I was saying before about, changing the narrative, and about, really looking at some of this stuff that's actually come forward and whether it's really serving us, come back into the body in itself to continue the great work, if you may, reboot the vehicle, because the vehicle is actually going to be in the condition that it's going to be in on the next run. So if you don't balance out, that's why these people got fascinated with the sun, right? Because we had already basically proved that the sun was the absolver, Ab-Soul, right? Not the rapper, but the absolution. Absolutely. Ab-Sol, Father, Son. So what does it mean if I absolve you from something? I remove your debt. You see what I mean? Like he's absolved. I'm dissolving your debt. So this is why that whole thing with the Jesus is like, yo, if Jesus can forgive all your sins, he can dissolve your debt. But see, all of that has to do with the organism in itself that we're calling the sun, which brings a new day. And the new day is like a death. You see what I mean? Because it's a forgetfulness. It's a forgetfulness of, because you get blinded by the light. The reality that we're living in is pretty much all the sun. And you'll see this if you have a third eye open. But on a simple level, the trees are receiving all of this energy from the sun, and they make the bark, they make everything they are from the sun. Everything that we're seeing makes everything that it is from the sun. So what is it? You are what you eat. It is the sun. But when you have a third eye open and you look at the sun, if you can survive laser, they just call him laser. Because your third eye, like if you open up your third eye and get ready to receive the intensity of the sun, because see, the thing is that, see, the reason why our third eye spends at least most of the time closed is because there is a sun. See, when you walk outside, your third eye is sensitive to light. So it's really trying to squeeze closed. Like most folks, they never even talk about this. I'm like, man, you know, yeah, sun gazing and all that is great, but you got to realize that your third eye is highly sensitive to light. And this is why when you go to bed at night, you can like first go around your room, remove all the LED lights, like from your charger and all that, because all those are beams coming across the room, right? Even that little, sometimes you can see it when you squint your eye and you see that light beam.
Yeah,
that's a real beam.
You see it. Yeah, you can see that beam. Yeah,
you see that beam. So when you're asleep, when that beam hits you, it intersects right into your vehicle, and it bounces off light off of your vehicle. When you put something dark over your eyes and over this top of your head, your dream is always going to be clearer. Always. Because this whole area is sensitive to light. Because why? Because the beings that the one of the previous models of us, there was no sun in that world. That's why they call it the vapor canopy. Deep. And also, even when we're talking about worlds, this is another thing. Venus is here. Saturn is here. You go to New York, that's Saturn's now. That's pretty much the block. You go deep in the jungle in Costa Rica, you're in Venus. Everything, the animals, the geometry, everything is Venus. You open the third eye and you feel like, well, am I walking in Earth? I mean, well, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work where you get in a rocket and you fly to this planet. That's not how it works. You go inside and then you can see it when you open up the eye, the oculus. Yeah. And because each chakra is an eye, it is an oculus. So when a chakra is closed, the eye is closed. And so what a schizophrenic is, again, just to answer the question, is they open up an eye in a damaged world. Because remember, the chakras, that's what the whole thing is in the whole battlefield of Arunha. It's like the Bhagavad Gita, right? It's like the battlefield of Arunha. It's like the body is laid out as a battlefield, and you going from the feet all the way to the crown and then back to the Dantain. That's another thing. That's what I say. Everybody be trying to come up here, but this is the end of the journey, all the way to the top of the mountain, Everest, Mount Meru. But then you got to go back to the base because, see, the thing that's below this is the netherworld. So some will go to the netherworld. They got to go deep. You got to make a journey. That's what Hajj really is. You got to make a pilgrimage. You got to make a journey. And where are you going? You're going to the realm of the dead. But the reality is now based on vibratory frequencies that actually they're coming to visit us because we be in the realm of the dead. Because the vibratory frequency of death is a vibratory frequency is what I'm saying. And that's why when they talk about the Amagi, when they talk about like when you're raising your hands, like when you're receiving a lot of energy, you look like it. You feel like it. And so in the realms of the energetics, everything is on high. Like everything is like, it's a full magnitude, right? And so, those are signs and indicators. And if we feel like that we're slowing down, it means that your tubes are clogged. And when your tubes start getting clogged, it disables your time travel. Now, how it's supposed to work also is that while you're here on the planet, what'll happen is you'll also be nourished, and you'll be nourished in many ways by being here. If you're going through a balanced experience. And then by the time you start getting older, your vehicle itself, your spiritual vehicle will be so strong that now that the body does not have as much strength to hold you, you will already start going beyond. Like when you start going to sleep. So as you're getting older, it's supposed to be like this. So you're like this elder now, you're like 80, but your spirit is huge. And every time the body just lets go a little bit, you already go off to the world that you're going to when you leave. So there is no fear like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to me, baby? What's going to happen to daddy? It's like if daddy had done all of his spiritual work, he will already know where he's going. And he'd be like, you see what I mean? So this is what's called an unbroken chain. Okay, that's why the Buddha's got this, what they call the golden circle, the unbroken chain. It means a succession of people who have not fallen asleep. So that way there can always be a golden ring of protection around the DNA, right? Because, you know, with everything being permitted, that's why I say everything is permitted. With everything being permitted in the realm, you know, the reason why it cannot have any limitations is because it's free. That's exactly the reason why it can't have any limitations, because it's free. And then the realms that adapt to the limitations, they become confined. And that's why it's known that the netherworld, they're more confined realms, that it's like you lose spatial. So technically, if everything goes well, when you leave here, you'll gain another spatial. That's the graduation. You'll go vertical. You could fly when you leave here, basically. If that doesn't work, you will go from moving horizontal to now burrowing. So it means that you will now only be able to kind of like dive or go or sink. Okay? And then that's where the whole nautical realm comes in at, because that is in itself, when you talk about the halls of Osiris, when you talk about Saturn and all that, if you know in the African traditions, they tell you all that is in the ocean. The Emerald City is in the ocean. All the technology that comes to the world is first developed in the ocean. The ocean has already got a covenant with the land. It stops at the shore. There's regions that is off limits to human beings. So all of the whole lore itself is there, existing between. And so you might want to say, so what is the rift between these beings in the ocean and the beings that are on earth? And the rift is the marriage. And that's where this covenant was before the disruption between the son and the mother. The covenant was that the land, basically that the land and the ocean would work together as a singularity, if you may. Now it's the masculine, the negative masculine energy working against the mother, and then it's also the negative feminine energy working against the mother, if you may. You see what I mean? So it's you know, the dynamics have changed, but it increases the experience in a certain way. So I would like to take a moment, because, you know, I can see that, you know, I need to bring it back cohesive. I have to use the restroom because I've been drinking water. This is a great thing to do. So maybe, you know, we could come forward, we can answer some questions or something, and you know, and see where this takes us, because the train has left the station, but you know, my notes are definitely exhausted. So
yeah, you want to go use the bathroom real quick?
Yeah, just